All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. So we're going to talk about the fact that Microsoft just gave a huge leg up, a huge help to the entire AI sector. All right. And especially Micron, AMD, definitely, because if you remember, AMD has a strategic partnership with Microsoft for their almost a lot of their products to go into and help facilitate and be a part of the Azure platform from Microsoft, which actually was one of the bright stars, if you will, shining lights of Microsoft's quarterly announcement. Okay, so I'm going to break down why Microsoft really lifted the entire AI sector. And I'm recording this video actually before the stock market opens this morning on Thursday, July 30th. So I'm recording this video at about 6:36 Dallas time. And you can see that the NASDAQ futures are up 1% and the Dow futures are up 0.39. Now, I have no crystal ball. Wish I did. If I did, I would be a billionaire. So I don't know what's going to happen at market open, but I am taking off this morning to go play golf. So I wanted to get this video done for you guys so that I could, maybe hit a few drives and maybe score decently. But, if you're a golf player, drop in the comments below. Isn't it the most frustrating game on the planet? Some days you play well, some days you don't. Some days you hit the ball well, but you don't score well. Very frustrating. All right. So we're going to talk about this. Microsoft $41 billion AI bet just cleared major test. Okay. So interestingly enough, here's what Microsoft did not do. They did come out and say that they're going to raise their Capex expenditures just a little bit they're raising the floor about $5 billion. So they're not spending nearly anything to the level of what Google is. Remember, Google is raised theirs to north of $200 billion for just this year. Okay. So let's take a look at what's going on with the market right now in market open. You can see yesterday Nvidia lost $7 at 3.55%, and right now it's up $3, up 1.6. And Micron, similar story, lost about 10 points yesterday in regular trading session, and overnight is up about 3%. I think it's being lifted obviously on news from Microsoft. Things of this nature. Also, on a side note, Samsung did report their quarterly earnings and came in really well, but the South Korean exchange, the Korean exchange, just got pummeled, which quite frankly, I expected to wake up and see I expected our futures to be down, especially on the NASDAQ, because what happened in South Korea, but that is not what we're seeing develop. AMD is up dramatically, as again, 3%, if that's what we're going to call that dramatically, but we were down 5.5% yesterday. Okay. So let's talk about right here. There it is, Microsoft right there. There we go. Okay. And by the way, the Federal Reserve yesterday, they held rates steady, all that kind of stuff. So we saw that. We have Amazon's earnings today and Apple's today. So we'll keep an eye on that for you. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button on the channel there. I appreciate it. Okay. So Microsoft poured a huge sum into AI infrastructure, and the Azure business is actually just posted over $100 billion. So we're going to jump at that. The revenue for Azure jumped 43+%, well ahead of the roughly 40% Wall Street was expected. And Microsoft is up dramatically. Let's see what is Microsoft doing right now. Let's see what it's doing in a pre-market. So down yesterday 0.7, and it's up basically almost 10 points in pre-market open trading, if you will. Okay. So a couple of key things I want to point out here, and I'm bringing this specifically around to AI stocks. Okay. So right here, quarterly capital expenditure spending on long-term assets such as data centers surged to $41 billion. Okay. So that's quarterly. All right. So my apologies. I said at the top of the video. So they're spending about, we're on track to spend about $120 billion, still way less than what we're seeing with Google. And again, I've been talking about this, guys, in videos. I consider this to be really an arms race. Now, everybody's developing different types of product, and how I think of AI products is I really think of them for retail customers that you and I are retail individual customers. We use Open AI's ChatGPT. We use Claude, things of this nature. But there's also corporate customers, commercial customers, and Microsoft does a very good job of servicing both of them. Okay, so that's quarterly capital expenditures, $41 billion. Okay, surged 70%. But Wall Street it was okay. Wall Street was okay with it because no one's running around screaming that Microsoft is not doing a good job of managing CapEx expenditures. I haven't seen anything like that, which ironically brings me back to the title of the video. And what I wanted to talk about at the top of the video really is that's good news. Okay. So it's always this capital expenditure thing that we keep hearing and we're worrying about. Now there's a new one, and I talked about it in a video yesterday. It's called circular financing, which it is something that Wall Street's going to now talk about a lot. And it's really an example of this was Nvidia putting up $250 billion to go into OpenAI's data center. Okay. So it's one of those things where these kind of companies are basically what they're calling backstopping, or it's this kind of circular financing where they're financing each other's AI initiatives. And so that's something that Wall Street really doesn't like. Okay. All right. So continuing on, Microsoft's been spending at a historic pace to add computing capacity. We know this. Quarter provided the strong evidence that the expansion is producing faster growth. Good news. Okay, so the Capex expenditure is directly being correlated to the obviously growth, and they're seeing an impact the business. So here you go. Here's their quarterly Capex expenditures. So you can see right here, 41 billion is where it topped. So, and you can see some of the other 30 billion, and these are the different quarterly numbers you can see right there. Okay, so companies spent slightly less than analysts expected, while Azure cleared its growth hurdle by more than 3 percentage points. Azure definitely coming on. So rest of the quarter backed that up. Overall revenue rose 18% to 90 billion, so forth and so on. Okay, this response stands in contrast with Alphabet Google, which delivered its own blockbuster cloud quarter last week. Google Cloud revenue surged 82% as profitability widened, but Alphabet shares plunged 7%. Worst session in more than 2 months after the company raised its spending outlook. Okay, that's that Capex expenditure that we've been talking about, right? Strong growth was not enough to overcome fears about the bill. And let's call it what it is. Google is spending dramatically more. On average, it looks like it's going to be probably 90 to 100 billion dollars more, at least as far as kind of from now, kind of like in a year and a half times frame, right? So Microsoft faced the same test and received a very different verdict. Its shares jumped about 9% in after-hours trading. But again, Microsoft's not spending as much, and the analysts are tying that spend directly to, for example, Azure growth, right? And remember, it was the Azure platform where Microsoft did the strategic deal. They've always been partners with AMD, but even brought more on around AMD as far as the strategic partnership to bring a lot of AMD's processing and power and their different product lines into the Azure platform. Okay. So it's interesting how this is working out. So let's right here. Microsoft says, quote, demand still exceeds available supply, but Microsoft says new capacity is producing revenue almost immediately. This is their Azure platform. So this is, I think, where it differs for Google. Google doesn't have a platform like Azure to directly correlate or attribute, again, per this sentence right here, where demand for Microsoft's Azure platform exceeds available supply. Microsoft's new capacity is producing revenue almost immediately. So that is a contrast between Google and Microsoft. Okay, so where does this leave us? It leaves us in a pretty good place. I think that the market, as we're seeing, is reacting well to this news. Because believe me, if Microsoft had come out and said something like, we are dramatically increasing CapEx expenditures north of what we told you before, we would see the NASDAQ be pulling down. We would see every single stock in the AI, the bellwethers in the AI sector being pulled down, all that kind of stuff. And here's another note, just kind of all over the place, but just kind of giving you this. SK Hynix is actually doing pretty well, considering what we saw in Korea overnight or in the last trading session over there. Okay, so it's looking pretty good there. Okay, so before I leave you, if you have any crypto or any gold, I've got something for you. This is a platform that I use personally, and I've put over $40,000 of my own money on this platform. I'm going to show you that in here in just a minute. And what it is that you can earn interest on any gold assets you might have. So if let's say you have some gold assets and you transferred $100,000 worth of gold assets, you could earn $23,000 annual percentage yield on that. Interest paid to you, period. Okay. And if you have stable coins, kind of similar number, they paying 23% on stable coins, and on crypto, they're paying about up to 18%, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP. So if you have any gold, any crypto, anything like that, and you're interested in making and getting a yield and getting a return on that, you might want to look at this. Okay. Now, this is my personal account. You can see I've only been doing this for about 5 or 6 days, and I've already made $100 in interest, and it's paying me every single day. Okay. What's really cool about this? And so you can see I've got some stable coins here. I don't have any gold assets, so I don't have any gold in here, but I've got crypto, Bitcoin, XRP, and Ethereum. You can see I got about 14,000 Bitcoin, 10,000 in XRP, and about 30,000 in Ethereum, and about 12 grand in stable coins. And again, I'm getting a yield every single day. I'm getting paid interest on crypto that, quite frankly, was sitting in a wallet and or it was on Coinbase that wasn't making any type of return. So if this is something that's intriguing to you, there'll be a link in the description below. I'll also pin a link down in the comments for you to take a look at. And if you want to take advantage of it, it's free to create an account. Also, I'll show you, just in case you're wondering, right here at the top, they had CoinDepot has over $250 million under assets, crypto assets under management, 113,000 active users, and they've been doing this for 5+ years. A lot of you will have asked me in the comments, well, how is it they can pay, up to, say, 23% for an annual percentage for stablecoins or for gold assets? It's really, really very simple. CoinDepot is a lending platform as well, just like banks. Okay, they are a lending platform as well. So they are obviously lending out, and they're a lending platform. So again, just like banks, remember, they take in your deposits, your cash. It sits there. They pay you less than 1%, sometimes less than 0.5%, and then they're lending it out 7, 8+%, depending upon it's a commercial or retail customer and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and right here, see, borrow without selling your assets. They're a lending platform. Okay, that's what's really cool about this. So if this is something that's intriguing to you, links down there. Go check her out, and I will see you as we see how everything else plays out later today. See you.